Hey everybody, happy Monday. InfoSec James on Twitter. James Byerly, founder of Secure Point Solutions. We are a small business focused cybersecurity firm, both services and consulting. I posted a challenge on Friday related to event logs, and here it is. If you haven't seen this, if you actually want to do the challenge before you see the rest of this video, go ahead and hit pause and check it out. So what we're doing here is we're going to use Windows Security Event IDs to help interpret what has happened. This resource here, ultimatewindowsecurity.com, has a wonderful cheat sheet of all the event IDs. And as I said here, no one has time to memorize the ID numbers. If you have a decent idea of what events show up, like failed logins, successful logins, that's probably good enough. Processes being created, those kind of things are good to know that they're logged, but you don't need to know the ID numbers. You have systems to do that. Most of the time you won't be doing this, but there are still times when an attacker has disabled something, or you run in an unfortunate situation of this device was never set up with instrumentation, so now we're having to do this the old school way. So the first thing starting off, and we're talking about logs going from the oldest event to the newest event. So the first you see here is that 4625 shows up 8,405 times in a row. Now, 4625 also has a very interesting piece that there's subcodes that gives you some reasoning. And then you have, and these are all single events, 4624, 4720, 4698, 4700, 4731, 4688, and then finally 1100. So let's talk about what, as I try to figure out what I'm doing here, let's talk about a little bit about the event IDs. Now, one thing is that some of these events will not show up in the logs if you do not have proper auditing for your Windows servers, Windows workstations. So if you're looking in your own system, and I'm going to show an example here, you may not see some of those, and simply because you don't have the right logging. There are a ton of resources out there that tell you what is recommended based on if you consider your systems high risk or low risk, or if your systems are domain controllers. There's a ton of resources out there. I'll share some out here either with this video, or I'll share them out separately in a Twitter and LinkedIn post. So let's go ahead and let's just take a quick stab at log IDs. So you come in here to your event viewer, you have application security, setup, system, and then you have a whole mess of other ones, which we're not going to get into. As you see here, it defaults from the newest to the oldest. And yes, you probably can see some things like a computer name, but whatever. So if you refresh this, you can right click it, or you can press the good old F5. You will see new events as they come about. Then you can move through here. And I just know that by me showing this, somebody is going to tweet at me and say, hey, I think your computer's compromised or something. But I'm pretty sure we're okay here. So filtering the current log. So this is a lot of stuff. And as you can see here, if you look over all the way across, you see event IDs. And so some of this stuff you may or may not want. So the nice thing is that you have the ability to do a log filter. So as it says here, you can include or exclude. And the exclude is, I think, sometimes more useful. So because we're not going to deal with it, and this isn't, it's not in here, let's go ahead and let's exclude that 4662. Okay, So now we've gotten rid of that. So now we no longer see it. And there's other ones that we could go in here and we can filter out. Now, if you're really curious about, well, what does 4662 do? Well, we have the Windows security log events. As I said, this was the ultimate windowsecurity.com. I've been using this page for a really long time because I can't remember half of this stuff. So 4662, an operation was performed on an object. So if you just go in here, you can take a quick look, and it gives you some description fields. It gives you some parameters, and kind of helps explain it. Also, what's nice in here is that a lot of these events, they will tell you, hey, this is a noisy event. So you might not want to log it unless you really hate your SIM or your people doing the analysis. So it says here, I don't recommend auditing read-only accesses since the value is questionable. Okay. On the whole, regard this event as noise. So this gives you some handy leading practices, things that you should do or don't do. If you are still using a really, really old system like a Windows 03 or before that, I'm sorry, but they do actually cross-reference the old versions of the logs. So again, if you're still running around with Windows 2003 boxes, man, I don't even totally know what to say. So let's just go back here. So let's look at our challenge here. So the first thing was 4625, and there was 8,400 events of this in here with this subcode, and the subcode is very important. So let's first go over here. What's 4625? Oh, there it is. An account failed to log on. All right, so there's logon failures. So this gives you, again, same information. Gives you, security ID, account names, account domains, all this other stuff. Now, I mentioned about these subcodes. I'm going to go back here just real quick, and we'll kind of shrink this down. So the subcode 0x6a. So 06xa gives you this here. Username is correct, but the password is wrong. Now, when you've logged into a system, when you mess up your credentials, it should tell you something along the lines of username/password is incorrect. It should never tell you, hey, the username's wrong. Because as an attacker, you could then enumerate your user accounts by trying a whole list of systems. And there are a lot of techniques and tactics that actually will allow you to do that. But the key piece is that you don't want your server to just tell the attacker that Bob is a legitimate username. So you have this 6A, so the password is wrong. So they have the username, and the username is not that important right here. We just know that the attacker has sprayed a bunch of passwords at this, and they were getting a whole bunch of failures. But then you have 4624. Now, one thing interesting about Windows Event IDs is a lot of times the opposite of one ID from another will actually be the same. So if we go back and we look here at 4624, an account was successfully logged on. So now this is a successful login. Now again, looking at this in a vacuum, and some of you may point out that, hey, this isn't totally realistic. This is more just an exercise in doing some lookups and maybe getting a little more of an understanding of the log systems, of your event logs. So you have a successful login. All right. So that's interesting. They failed 8,400 times, and then they were successful. So that is often associated with a brute force of the passwords. So they took some password list, and after over 8,000 times, finally got lucky. So we will continue here in our journey of logs. And also, just for those of you watching that maybe are looking at security tools, a brute force attempt like this 4625, I would consider that, like, if you're looking at a security system, I would consider that like a medium level alert where they're trying to get in, and you probably need to block some things. You probably need to look at what's going on. It's definitely something worth investigating. But the fact that it goes from a bunch of unsuccessfuls to a successful, that takes that alert from a medium to critical. Drop everything and go and investigate. So let's look at our next one here, the 4720. So we scroll down, we keep scrolling down, and here we find a user account was created. Okay, so that's interesting. User account was created. There would be additional information like what account did the creation. There's a whole bunch of things. Is password required? Was the account created but then disabled? A whole bunch of other settings in here. So this would be something that oftentimes an attacker would immediately create a new account if they can. And they would do that because the account that they're operating under has already generated a fair amount of noise in here. So they need to move quickly from the account that they got in with to another account that hopefully goes undetected. So that's a little bit of that, persistence method that attackers will use. They creating a new account and doing a few other things because they suspect that they'll get caught. This is the cybersecurity equivalent to ditching the getaway car after a bank robbery. Everyone saw you leave out of the parking lot in that car. Well, ditch it. Go find a new car. So let's dive in so you don't have to see me anymore here. So next one we have is the 4698. All right, so we go back up a bit, and 4698, a scheduled task was created. So a scheduled task is created, and it's placed into the system. So this is definitely cause for concern because, again, the attacker is now scheduling something that would be set up to fire off at set intervals. Now, what they're setting up might be a persistence method. It might be re-enabling an account. And again, we don't have the nitty-gritty details here, and that's not as important as just going on this little journey through security logs. So we know that the task was created. Definitely some suspicious stuff going on. And then right after that, 4700, a scheduled task was enabled. Now, if you asked me right now, do tasks that get created, are they automatically enabled? I would tell you I don't know. I believe that they are by default disabled and you have to go in there and turn them on. Somebody will probably correct me because that's how social media is, and I'm actually going to go and look that up after the fact. Probably should have done it before, but hey, this is a learning event for everybody. So attacker has created a scheduled task. They have now enabled it to make sure that it runs. Also remember, most attackers, they're not insanely skilled at using computer systems. Sometimes they're just going through and scripting things and hoping that the scripts worked, that they got set up correctly. So what do we have next? 4731. So a security enabled local group. So I kind of threw this in. This talks about if it is logged on domain controllers for local groups. Security simply as security groups. So this is probably a sign that the attacker got in with some privileged credentials, not just a standard user account. I threw this one in there partly just to lead people down the need to do a little research. So as you can see here, and you can certainly look these up later, this would definitely be something that, again, if this is all associated to a single user and this user is malicious, again, cause for concern. All right. Next, 4688. So 4688, a new process has been created. Now, typically this is something that you will not do a lot of logging of, because every process that gets created would get logged to the system. So you could really fill up your logs with this kind of stuff. It's considered noisy. But if we are maybe doing a search where we're now looking just at a particular account and we're trying to find out, okay, this account has done the following things, what's the next thing they've done? In this case, it's the 4688. They've created a process. Now, again, what we're looking at right now, we don't know what that process was. We would be able to look at it inside the log, inside the more detailed information, which we go back here. So let me see if I can find 4688s in my own system. So here you would see that a process has been created, new process name, the mandatory labels, elevation types, and it gives you explanations on these things with the login ID. So from here, you could definitely gather more information on what that process actually did. So was this process maybe this process was related to that scheduled task. Maybe it wasn't related to anything. So then finally, event ID 1100. So let's just take a quick look at that one. The event logging service has shut down. So at that point, the attacker has just said, nope, no more logs for you. You don't get to see anything else. Now, there's other ones out there. There are event audit log was cleared. That is another one that an attacker might try to use to cover their tracks. By clearing it, you wouldn't have seen any of the other stuff leading up to it. By shutting this down, now you're unable to see all the really fun things that they might be doing. So again, I threw these together just as a test to give people something to kind of hunt down, give somebody an idea of, getting into the logs. Get into your own event logs. Just because you see something that looks sketchy doesn't necessarily mean it is. Windows is very noisy. Windows logs have a lot of things in them, and without the context of other information, it can be really difficult to tell what's going on. So I also wanted to share out, so I had challenged some people both on Twitter and then also in a private Discord for work study. I challenged people to solve this, and a couple people solved it. One person solved it almost immediately, and props to Anubis on Discord for the quick solve and the information. And then also Haircut Fish on Discord actually did a write-up and is posting it to Medium, so we'll be sharing that out as well in the descriptions and in the information. His write-up, not only does it go into what happened, but he talks about mitigations, because no system should allow you to be able to log in 8,400 times without doing something, rate limiting, stop, locking that account, throwing some sort of alert. Some of these other ones show examples of privileges being abused. Maybe an end user shouldn't be able to create scheduled tasks. Maybe a and end users shouldn't be able to create security groups. All those things definitely shouldn't be able to shut down the logging service. So those are just some ideas on how we would mitigate these steps. So I hope that this kind of strangely set up video was beneficial to you. I hope you got something from it. Please send tweets, send LinkedIn comments, wherever you're watching this from. Just thoughts on this. If it's something interesting, let me know. This was literally me just putting something together. I helped out with a mock interview and then got thinking, hey, I should put this out for people to play with. If you want to see more of these, by all means, let me know. We can come up with some ones that are a little more complicated or some that are a little bit easier. And then finally, I will end this off with, if you know of a small business that needs cybersecurity, please reach out to me. We are all in this together, and we don't look at companies as being too small. We don't look at companies as just being on their own. We want to build a sense of community here, and we want to secure that community. So again, InfoSec James signing off. Have a wonderful day. Bye, everybody.